And welcome everybody. That this is a Ninjaspence 21, and I just saw us just about a couple of hours ago playing. We were playing a Monster of the Week game called Ruka Fest. That was fun and chaotic, and I hope that you will not be able to financially recover from that. But anyway, that it is the third Sunday of basically team bonus action here, and then that we are starting out with a brand new show called Investigation Check, where we will basically be deep diving into one topic, and then let's just start it off with just at the topic about dragons. And who do I have with me on the panel today? I mean tonight rather.
Hello, I am Emily, aka Frey.
I'm Neysa that does cosplay, and if you're getting background noises, terribly in the house.
Alrighty then. Alrighty then. Thank you. Thank you for joining us, both of y'all tonight on this, and then that. As I know, is that we are talking about dragons. So that we have all had the glorious from throughout all of our D&D games and stuff fighting a dragon, but we never actually dove deep into a dragon. And basically, I just want to know, what did y'all research about dragons and such?
Um, I looked into a very specific dragon because, as I probably said ad nauseum, I have a Polish background, and there is a very specific history or fairy tale from Krakow, Poland, about a dragon there. So that is what I looked into tonight.
Um, I went into a more thematic perspective of dragons throughout history as creatures of magic and why that's important and where it potentially ties into some cultural and historical themes across different global populations.
Oh, nice. I mean,
Is
then that I'm pretty sure that both of those are going to be a plethora of us to talk about, as that the horde of knowledge that we will be basically discussing. But which one of y'all would like to go first?
You can go ahead and go first, Nisa.
Okay, give me 1 second to pull up my notes documentation.
Is Nisa robot for you, Spence, or is it just me?
A little roboty on my end, but it isn't too detrimental.
I can't help that. I'm sorry.
Eh,
Okay. So this is gonna function like a bit like a mini. Um, I hate to say lecture, but I have like a whole like concept flow. And so if I want to jump in or also talk about anything in particular, just say so. Um, because otherwise I'm just gonna kind of be fun because I can ramble. Um, so the concept of dragons as a concept as a term use has existed in many different forms.
Alrighty then. So then that while that basically that Nasa is going to try to fix her connection issues. Let's just hear about the Polish dragons first. Sorry about the technical difficulties first, folks, and then that'll basically be resolved pronto. We hope.
Hopefully it'll just kind of even itself out. Um okay, so get up my notes here. So The dragon I looked into specifically is called the Vavel dragon. Um, and I might butcher some names in this. I'm learning Polish. I'm not good at it yet. It's spelled Wawel, but in Polish W's are V, so Vavel dragon. Its other names are the Dragon of Wawel Hill and Smok Wawelski. And every time I've read about this, it catches my eye because smoke is very close to smog. So I have a feeling, I have not found this anywhere that I look, but I have a feeling that name might have influenced possibly another very famous dragon. So, the history of this dragon, the very first accounts of it are from all the way back in the 13th century. And the story goes that the capital city at the time of Krakow, Poland, was plagued by this dragon. And the city had been established by this legendary king Krak, or Krakus, and who founded the city. Each day, this evil dragon would beat a path of destruction across the countryside, killing, pillaging, devouring their livestock, and in a lot of versions, the dragon especially liked eating young maidens. Because dragon, of course it does. Now, warriors would come from near and far and fought and attempted to end the dragon's reign of terror and win the crown and the hand of the king's daughter, of course. But they all failed. Until a new plan was formed. So there are actually 3 versions of this story that I was able to find out about. The original was written in a Polish bishop's chronicle about Poland. His name was Vicente Kodlubek. And the original Latin text actually refers to the dragon as a holophagus, which is one who swallows whole. But it was let's see. Oh, I lost my place. It was in Polish itself, the monster was actually referred to as the greedily swallowing dragon. It was a terrible, cruel beast dwelling in the depths of a certain rock or a certain cave, what would later become known as the Wawel Cave under Wawel Castle. And it was being appeased with a weekly ration of cattle or humans would need to be sacrificed in the absence of enough cattle to give this dragon. So King Krak, who was like, hey, this dragon's got to go. He called in his 2 sons and said, you got to fix this. We can't deal with this anymore. It couldn't be defeated in combat because so many had tried, so they had to get creative. So they decided to stuff a bunch of cattle skins full of smoldering sulfur, feed it to the dragon, and the dragon blew up. But, of course, drama. The younger prince, who was Krak the Younger or Krak Jr., murdered his elder brother to take sole credit. And after that, when it was discovered, he was banished, and that left their sister, Princess Wanda, to succeed the throne. So the princess that everyone was trying to marry ended up running the country. Kind of good and bad end for her, I guess. The second version was written in the 15th century, and names around were swapped. The elder son became Krak Jr., and the younger became known as Lech. The king was also changed to where he came up with this whole trick on the dragon. With the sulfur stuffed cows, and planned it himself and tasked his sons with executing it because he was afraid the city was going to en masse run and he'd be left an empty city because of the dragon. Let's see. Not only did they stuff the cows with sulfur, as well as tinder, wax, pitch, and tar, and then they were set on fire. And I guess the dragon must have liked his meat well done because he ate the burning meat and then died breathing fire. Then the third version is this version. Actually, no, this version, the second version, added in the dragon's cave, which is the one that's beneath Valvel Castle on Valvel Hill on the bank of the Vistula River. Therefore, Dragon of Valvel Hill. The later version, written in 1597, actually credited a cobbler named his name was it's been written as Scub or Scubba. I don't know what that name's supposed to mean, but Skub, Scub. And this story still takes place during the reign of King Crack. The dragon's palate was a little more specific, as it demanded things in threes: 3 calves, 3 rams, 3 sheep. And if it didn't get enough, it would again snatch people to satiate his hunger if he weren't given enough. So Scob suggests that skins be full of sulfur as bait. In this version, it's a little less of a fiery death, as the dragon couldn't swallow the food, and instead drank water from the river until it died. So a little less dramatic. And afterwards, of course, the shoemaker was rewarded handsomely and got to marry the princess. But some historians do think that there are some more historical bases for the dragon. They as like being a symbol of the presence of the Avars on Volvel Hill in the second half of the 6th century. And its victimized symbolized the tributes that were given. It could also represent I think it was a king. His name was I keep wanting to say Bonesaw, but that's not actually the name. It's Bolesław II, who's responsible for the martyrdom of Saint Stanislaus of Poland. And it's not just a story about it that's kind of interesting. The spot where it supposedly happened is still a very big tourist attraction in Poland. The cave, it's called like it was Smok for dragon Smokza Yama, the dragon's cave, still exists, and it's a limestone cave that is located in the hill. In 1969, a statue was created by a Polish sculptor that had 6 heads, is made of bronze, and sits on a limestone boulder, and is 6 meters tall. And in 1972, it was installed at its present location just outside the castle. And it is designed to breathe fire. I think this is really cool because it was modernized recently. Originally, it just breathed fire by 5-minute intervals. It uses natural gas. Now they have it set up to where you can send a text message to the dragon statue and it will breathe fire on demand. And this statue gets at least 2,500 requests a day by text to breathe fire. So
That is amazing.
it's really cool. I looked up. I'm actually going to post a picture in. I'm going to post a picture in Discord real quick of what this dragon statue looks like.
What's the number so you can text it?
I actually tried to find the number, but I don't know if you could do it if you don't live in Poland or in Europe. I could try and find. I could try and look it up. You'd probably have to pay some kind of fee for it being out of network or something.
International texting fees just charge you $30 just to send one letter. But yeah, then that's really amazing, you know.
And
I mean that. Go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I mean that you know that both of all 3 of the stories, excuse me, that they all had different outcomes and stuff, and then that is very, very interesting to see that you know it isn't your stereotypical dragon hoarding over gold or nothing. It seemed like that it was a lot of like life lessons and stuff taught with the dragon. from the story. But then that is very, very good. So, are we good to go, Neysa? Okay. Mm. We have a lot of technical difficulties, but just to keep the string going until that we get everybody else is going, for the most part. Uh, wow. That basically that from what I basically know about dragons is, unless of course if the Neysa can just cut me off at any time that wants that, whenever that she is ready to, it's just basically dragons, from what I've seen up in media and such, and that they are basically normally either seen as the old wise creature, mystical, or else just evil, burn down your village type of creature. You know, that's just a little bit of my extent as far as it goes. But you know that the classic trope of like that the princess is always snatched by the dragon. I mean, like literally, Super Mario has basically, well, would Bowser be considered a dragon? It's a very good question, though. Oh no. Still not coming through. Okay, but that's fine. So, I mean, that Bowser could be a dragon. I mean, that he is the king. But I've seen like a lot of things say that he is more akin to turtle than dragon. So, let me see. Bowser.
Am I coming in now?
It is a little bit better. So it basically reads that Bowser is based on a Chinese dragon turtle. Hmm, interesting.
How about now?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Okay. Alright. If this'll hold out, and if it's not too crazy on the background noise, then I think I'm good.
Alrighty. So then we have Neysa basically stating her point.
Okay. So what I'm going to talk about is the concept of dragons. Basically, dragons is a concept across different cultures and different ways of thinking about them categorically. The earliest human cultures. Usually it takes one or two forms. The or primal energy, or they are monsters of various sorts. Ultimate whole all of this metaphorically is that dragons are viewing dragons as primal energies. Most easily recognizable as the Asian dragon concept. In the last dragon, happen. This in my life, the dance, which is performed by celebrations in Asian communities, it does draw its origins from the idea of dragons as harbingers of this in the same
Jumbled. Technical difficulties because of rain, folks. We are sorry about that.
Yeah, sorry about that. I'm over here monitoring audio and internet. Right now, M's computer is having to restart because it decided to not like uploading an image to Discord, and weather seems to be messing with Neysa's internet. But I guess I'll jump out of being quiet for this little bit while we're waiting. Is other when we were playing earlier, I dropped a little bit of dragon lore that's out there that there's technically in most, if you look at most mythologies, there's two different major types of dragons. Like for the most part, like I said in the game, there's little D and big D. Like a little D dragon are your worms, your drakes, your wyverns, your traditional Western and Eastern dragons. Because a lot of times they are a creature that is or is not possibly magical or naturally occurring. And then there's the big D dragon that usually pops up in non-European mythos and belief systems, to where they're more of an elemental force and semi-divine, if not fully divine, in all aspects. So a lot of times that is like it's like a power scaling situation you sometimes run into with dragons. Like there's the ones that the knight goes out and fights that are more bestial and animal like, and then there's yeah, if you try to kill that, it's not going to go over well. Like you might destroy part of the world if you succeed. And I know that the books, the Harry Dresden series, do actually pull from that, because there are several worms and great drakes that are mentioned, but there were 5 or 6 actual dragons, and now there's one less. Like Faravax, the dragon in that book series, has Odin's respect, and Odin is wary around him. Because truthfully, if he was to take his actual full form, it'd be kind of like Call of Cthulhu-esque. Most mortals would lose their mind. And that pulls from that belief system that they're more of a elemental great power that cannot be fully comprehended, which is kind of neat.
Alrighty then. So then that's a very good thing and stuff. So basically that since that that Neysa is having just internet problems and stuff, that I am basically going to be translator for her for just her notes and such, and then that I will be also reading her rebuttals as well. So basically that what that she has written down here is basically that it is basically combining two perspectives to basically explain the core of basically dragons. The concept of dragons have existed in many forms since that the earliest human cultures. Usually this takes one of two forms: that they are beings of elemental or primal energy, or that they are monsters of varying purpose and construction. We would like to explore both of those concepts as relating to one core principle: dragons are magic. I mean, that is very true. Up in most cases, that is my own personal thinks thoughts about it. But no, that's it. Just stay with me. It pays off at the end that is what she says. And quoting again, first, dragons are as primordial energy beings, forces of nature in real life cultures. Probably the most easily recognizable form of this interpretation of dragons is any form of the East Asian persuasion, as seen most recently in Disney's Raya and the Lost Dragons. I still need to see that movie. Dragons possess innate control over many of the natural phenomena of the region they inhabited. Rain, misfire, and more fall under their purview as lords and ladies of the elemental energy. The long dragon dance, performed by a team of acrobatic puppeteers during Lunar New Year celebrations in many Asian communities, draws its origins from the ideas as from the idea of dragons as harbingers of springtime rains. And who can forget the North American thunderbird or the Mesoamerican feathered serpent? Both of these creatures are elemental bringers of rain and light, essential for the survival of the cultures that spawned them. Any points so far before I continue? Okay. Alrighty. Alrighty then. So then that the next thing up and just still part of this first thing is that the forces of nature. The view of dragons as primordial beings and fonts of elemental energy has also been explored in the lengthy but worthy novel The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Sharon. Neysa's campaign, Tears of Kairos, draws heavily from this novel for the ongoing connection between dragons and stars. In Priory, dragons come from one of two origins. Lucitrine dragons are viewed as gods and come from the stars. Worms are destructive forces and the spawn of a volcanic progenitor known only as the Nameless. Priory's Lucastring dragons are modeled quite obviously on Asian dragons, long serpentine creatures that fly by swimming through the air, and their power predominantly is held in the deep waters of their native ocean seascapes. Priory's worms are modeled after the Western tradition Georgian dragons, 2 to 4 legs, 2 wings, fiery breath, and demonic ire. Okay, and ties to D&D. In D&D lore, we see this dichotomy represented in the in the eternal meta knowledge that details the differences between chromatic and metallic dragons. While both share a palette of elemental breath weapons, their appearances, color, and temperament alignments are split along a single defining characteristic. Do they use their primordial power for the good of lesser beings, or do they use it to destroy the lesser being? I mean, that for me personally, dragons, that I basically knew of the chromatic and metallic orders of dragons, but not to give too much away from the go on. Okay, I thought somebody was cutting me off, but not to give too much away from basically my own campaign that has been on hiatus from Team Bonus Action. That the dragons all live in harmony like it's one big commune. But that the party in Team Bonus Action, that they have not made it to that threshold yet because the dragons are gone. They don't know what happened to them. Anything that you want to say, Miro, before I move on to the second point? Okay then. Okay then. And Neysa is typing, so I would just give her just a moment to say her thought. I mean that it's just to be fair. Whenever that we do think about dragons and stuff that it is okay. So Nasa's point is, and then I quote: "As a DM, I hate using the chromatic and metallic as hard and fast rules. I enjoy taking them as individual creatures and cultures, just like humans. But in the lore of D&D, they are split that way, which I can kind of see that being a good thing, especially if somebody's world building isn't as strong as somebody else's. Then that's a good baseline to follow, just a whole basic plot of good versus evil. I mean that it is just like Hewitt. Just pretend that you don't hear this lady, that like Lady Mapasis, that she is a blue black dragonkin, and she is basically queen of the dragons and such. So then that she just basically rules over all and such. And then that I think then that basically allows us to basically see these dragons as pseudo gods to even gods themselves up in some forms of games and stuff. Because before I get on to the second point of Nesa's wonderful document, for me, dragons. If you are introducing a dragon into your D&D game, or just any other type of media, hello, welcome back. And then it just becomes just it is the go time moment. All right. Welcome back, Frey. And I will go to her second point. Dragons as a Leviathan. The Greek drakon, the term dragon, can be linguistically traced to the Greek drakon, which is a collective term for a number of similar monstrosities found throughout the Mediterranean lore and culture. The term dragon itself is derived from the verb draken, to see kingly. In Greek myth specifically, dragons were a type of monster only faced by the greatest heroes. Creatures such as the Lerninia Hydra, the Python of Delphi, Ladon, the 100-headed serpent of the island of the Golden Apples, and more. The Chimera itself is also included into the ranks of Greek dragons. When they weren't rampaging across the countryside as spear fodder, many of the Greek dragons were tasked with guarding a treasure of some kind. Ladon guarded the golden apple tree of of Hesperdes. I am sorry I am butchering these. The Colchian that the Colchian serpent watched over the golden fleece in Ares' sacred grove. The Isamaean dragon watched over a wellspring protected by Ares near Thebes. Zeus and Artemis each had at least one guard dragon too. So I guess it runs in the family. Anyway, the Judeo-Christian Leviathan. This concept of pooling a bunch of individually different monstrosities into a single category. Big bag, stinky, scaly boy. I mean, big bag, stanky breath, scaly boys may be related to the Judeo-Christian tradition of referencing a few gargantuan monsters that may or may not have referenced actual beasts. The term Leviathan is used in at least 3 separate locations in the Torah, Old Testament, in Psalms, chapter 40. In chapter 74, verse 14, a multi-headed creature is slain by God and given to the Hebrews as a subsistence in the wilderness. In Isaiah chapter 27, verse 1, Leviathan is a serpentine metaphor for the enemies of God. Throughout Job 41, she is a sea serpent of Olympic proportion and is used symbolically to invoke the concept of God's creative power. Since what modern Christians know as the Bible was translated from Hebrew into Greek well before it was Latinized and anglicized, I am choosing to believe this is rules as intended. The concept of Leviathan has shifted since the Hebraic and Grecian usage. The term now means either sea monster of epic proportion or something larger than what it should be. Moby Dick is a Leviathan by definition. Cthulhu is technically not a Leviathan, though Cthulhu in Lovecraftian lore does have a subnautical second in command called Leviathan. Basically, the concept of dragons as larger than they should be beasts of immense and possibly eldritch power that usually guard treasure or serve something more powerful than themselves is well established throughout Western history and culture. Any that do you have? Oh, wait a minute. I still have one more thing ties to D&D. That this concept has been brought into D&D lore in the way that dragons and draconic beings were expected to be used by the dungeon master. We all know dragons keep a hoard of some kind, whether it be wealth, knowledge, or trophy. We all know dragons guard the princess's tower, or protect the lich's phylactery, or hunt down rogues who got a little too handsy with the archmage's component pouches. Dragonborn NPCs and player characters strive to be worthy of their heritage. Kobolds seek to pave the way of their scaly overlord to triumph. In this way, dragons of the D&D multiverse adhere to their Leviathan and Dracon legacy. Anything so far? Frey? Uh-huh. All right, and then that finally, in conclusion, that dragons are. I didn't hear. I didn't hear.
No, I didn't say anything.
Oh, then I had just wanted to know that your thoughts on that. The second point, as dragons as a leviathan.
Oh, I only heard bits of it because my computer was still turning back on.
It's all good. Okay, then I would just finish off that the document that Neysa has provided for us. Okay, conclusion. Yeah, true that we are struggling, chat. We do apologize that the rain was being mean to us. But anyway, to finish off that Neysa's words, in conclusion, dragons as creatures innately tied to magic, bringing it full circle. Combining both of the previous concepts takes no major leap of faith or logic, whether they embody elemental and primordial forces or harness eldritch power to become monsters in their own right. Dragons have always been and will always be innately magical creatures. No matter what flavor you choose to spin in your cotton candy ball of draconic whatnot, you can't get away from dragons or magic. Take away magic from dragons, and you are left with dinosaurs. I mean, yeah,
You're not wrong.
You're not wrong. I mean that you just got a flying. You did not lie. I mean that, it is funny you say that because that I play a little game called Monster Hunter. And she did say thank you for coming to her TED Talk. So basically, Monster Hunter, that they have these things called like elder dragons, and then that there is like a dragon that kind of does look like a chimera. Oh, what is the name of that one? Oh, I think it is the one that got the lion head, the goat ram, the snake tail. Oh, I call him Simba. I forget that dragon. Yeah, uh-huh. Yeah, that it is a Tessera and then Lunastra. That they are basically like that these couple dragons, one of them is red, one of them is blue, and both of them are essentially chimeras. And then that they basically breathe fire, even though that Lunastra breathes like this blue fire that hurts. So so it is basically so it is just basically very, very, you know, amazing. But Monster Hunter doesn't have magic for say that they're just built different dragons in a sense because that they come from an ecosystem. And then that I guess I am coming from a more of a video game knowledge standpoint on this to kind of just make sure that we are fluffing out our hour to speak about this amazing topic about dragons and such. But whenever that you are hunting these creatures in Hunter, that it is like a all out battle, because that as like most of the stories and stuff that we always listen to and stuff with dragons, we are basically you always hear about that there is like a soldier group of adventurers. It's just either that you have the one man band, or else that you have the party, or else that you have the hardy adventurers ready to basically try to tackle this beast. But all in all, I mean that a dragon is a very formidable foe, regardless. And then I think that us understanding it a little bit better and stuff will give us a greater appreciation. So, what do you think about that, Frey? And Neysa?
Oh yeah, I think so. I mean, I think I think there's a lot of appreciation for dragons in media, and but I think it's interesting to see all the things that lead to the different versions and the different uh you know representations of them. I did want to mention before I got my computer decided to stop learning how to computer earlier. I got cut off before I could mention um a couple last things about the Vavel dragon. One of them is that it's just kind of funny. There's a street leads along the banks of the Vistula River that leads toward the castle, and in the it's called Ulika Smogza, which means Dragon Street. So there is a Dragon Street. There is also in the Cathedral of Vavel a plaque commemorating the defeat of this dragon. And at the entrance of the cathedral, there are actually bones hanging that are probably from a whale or some big sea creature that they just used. They're hanging from a chain. And they were found and carried to the cathedral in medieval times as the remains of the dragon. Probably just, you know, as a ritual thing or something. But it's a little ominous because it actually is believed that the world will come to its end if the bones ever fall to the ground. So take that as you will. But on a lighter note, I've shared these in the Discord, but just like any tourist attraction, there are so many things that you can get for this dragon. There's like the kitschy stuff that's at the castle. There's keychains and there's plushies and stuff like that. You can find books. I found a book online from Walmart.com about this dragon. And there's candy, there's jelly beans, and there's gummies in chocolate. Those are the ones that I shared. I also found on eBay a wooden dragon that's supposed to be representation and a beer mug with the dragon and the castle, which I'll share once I'm done talking so my computer doesn't freeze again. But it's just funny how a lot of these stories and these representations all kind of blend into each other at one point or another. Like, I'm sure most people have never heard of this dragon. I hadn't, but its name in Polish is so similar to Smog that I can't ignore it. It has to be somewhere in there. He had to have heard that name at some point.
I mean, that's very true. I mean, that as most writers always do, then that it's basically if we hear something, we will try to incorporate it somehow. And in that Neysa had a point, and in that I am reading quote that says that there is an Irish author, Anne McCaffrey, who writes a series called Dragon Riders of Perth. Of Pern. Her series was often mistaken for fantasy, but she specifically wrote it as sci-fi. The dragons themselves chewed a phosphorus-based rock, that which combined with their stomach acid to allow them to belch a flammable gas. There was a science behind every bit of Pern's dragons, and that's the one exception. And my dragons can ha- ha- have to be magic or they are dinosaurs from.
I've heard of Dragon
Well,
Riders of Pern. I've heard of that. I've never read it though.
me neither, but I mean that's kind of fair, but it also goes back to Monster Hunter. Whenever they say like elder dragons, you know that these are like biologically enhanced creatures. I mean, that like that you literally have a dragon that basically spits out this miasma that basically like destroys the ecosystem because he is supposed to be like a dragon of death. You have this other dragon that is basically a water-based dragon, but it basically generates electricity from that it just from just technicolor color wings and tentacles like like a supercharged jellyfish. So not all dragons could be magical, but then it could be up in the realm of science fiction.
I mean, they got size on their side for the most part too, but think of them killing death machines, and they're supposed to be scary, especially in the lore I looked into. And then you see the picture that I shared. This thing was drawn in like the 1400s, and that is the derpiest mother trucker I've ever seen.
I mean, yeah, that is true because
It's
then
like a
it's
weird
just.
fish.
I mean that it may look. I mean, it may look derpy to us, but you also got to understand that
Be
like that.
people.
That I would be scared of that if I didn't know any better. Be like, what is this thing?
Oh
Is it
yeah,
gonna?
it's just I compare that to the one I posted above, the six-headed dragon statue. It's like I don't know. He kind of looks goofy compared to that, but just looking at the size of him, yeah, no, he'd definitely be scary.
Oh yeah.
Also, yeah, Komodo dragons are fucking terrifying.
Oh yeah. I mean, good God. Oh yes, and then her name is Anomaly. That's the dragon that I was talking about that shoots out a
I see the
water
jellyfish
breath,
reference. Yeah,
but then that it basically will shock the hell out of you. Yeah, that her armor set is pretty too.
like I love Dragon Age and I love playing it, but fighting dragons in Dragon Age is the most annoying shit possible.
I mean that Monster Hunter is 10 times worse because sometimes that if that you just solo a hunt on like an elder dragon, and then especially that if that you are doing like a mission where that they want you to I don't know hunt like 3 of these things in 50 minutes. Yeah,
I'll stick with Dragon Age. It's just funny that it's called Dragon Age and fighting dragons is not even that important until the third game, and then even then you don't have to fight the dragons to beat the game.
but why
Well,
is that? But why in the world do? But that this is just a general question for us in just all. Why do like movies, games, books, and stuff that they always either wait till like that they wait till a climatic moment and just be like, here is your dragon. Now have fun.
because it's shock value, it's scary. It's like, oh crap, dragon. That's like the end all be all of fantasy things you gotta fight. I mean, there's exceptions like what was it called, Dragonheart and stuff like that, or How to Train Your Dragon. But dragons are the scary thing. They're the big bad in 90% of the things that are
I
fantasy.
mean, I would be honest that if I saw Toothless in real life, I would still be scared. It's a It's a toothless dragon, but still.
Kitty.
Yeah, so Neysa, and then I quote, says that my first exposure to D&D was through the Dragonlance paperback. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, Dragons of Autumn Twilight. I hated that dragons were evil. I nearly didn't want to finish reading the series. Then that she fell in love with Rat
Iceland?
Stillin. Rat Stillin. So
Iceland, I think. I've never read Dragonlance.
I had almost picked it up whenever that our local bookstore here were just having just all of their old backlog books for like super cheap. I think I actually got a copy somewhere. But yeah, I mean that dragons and stuff is basically what
I mean, they're like,
essentially
I think dragons are like the quintessential. You see a dragon on something, you know it's fantasy.
right.
You
Oh
know,
yeah.
and I think that's something people expect from fantasy. And I'm not saying that as a negative because I freaking love dragons, but like it's one of those things where you can look at it and kind of know what you're getting into for the most part. You don't look at it and think this must be Star Wars.
Right. Right, and then that she had Neysa had also said then that she had discovered her all-time favorite dragon book series, and Inheritance Cycle by Christopher Haloni, the Aragon series. Oh, a
I've
lot of people was
actually
reading that.
I've actually never read Aragon.
Even either that I had just knew of it, and I had just knew of it during high school, but it was just so thick, and it was just and then it was an intimidating book. I will
It
read
didn't
them.
intimidate me. I just never picked it up. It's not something my friends ever picked up actually either. That's probably why. I know that the first movie got like panned. And I know they're gonna try and redo it, but yeah, I remember it being a big deal because he wrote the book when he was just 15, like Neysa saying. You can tell he's a lonely kid, but it gets so much better. I knew we were getting a reboot. I had heard about the reboot. I never even saw the first movie because I wasn't into the books. I don't know why I never picked them up. Probably fell at a time when I had to read a bunch of other shit.
Yeah, I mean that. Oh man, that I know for a fact that I don't want to give away that the retelling of the King Arthur stories that I had fell in love with by Christian White, which is basically that the King Arthur Rising series to where then that they had like King Arthur is not even that the main character of these series of books. It is basically Guinevere actually is, but I don't want to give it away about something's off with Guinevere because you figure it out in like the first page, but I don't want to say anything.
I never really read a whole lot of stuff based around King Arthur. I read Mort d'Arthur, The Death of King Arthur in college, and I that is one of it's about his death, but it's for some reason was one of the my favorite things to read at that time, and it still has stuck with me. Like one of my college projects was I did several pages of a comic version of what happened in it.
I
And
mean
it's
that.
really good. If you get the right
Mhm.
translation, if it's an old translation, it's hard to read. But if you get a more modern translation, it's for some reason for me it was such a good read.
I have it still. Whenever that we had studied it up in college, that I have it up in the old language and the new language, and then that
I hate
basically for
reading in Old
those
and Middle English. I hate reading in Old and Middle.
basically for those of the unjust initiated, King Arthur Pendragon. I mean, it says so in his name that Merlin basically did some things and gave this man magical blood. We don't know that if it's actually dragon blood or not. Well, it actually not. It is with Lady of the Lake, but then that's a whole nother
Yeah,
rabbit hole that we
we
will
could
get
do
into.
a whole nother podcast about King Arthur, and I'm sure Hugh would want to get in on that one.
Oh yeah,
But
exactly. It's Merlin. You know
Merlin's sketchy as fuck.
exactly. But anyway, but
Anyway,
any but
back to our actual subject.
yeah, I mean that, but yeah, that that back to anyway. Before that, we are comparing King Arthur and then like Rick and Morty. Good God. Anyway, it's just more so that like next episode's topic. I don't know. I mean that that do y'all got any final thoughts about dragons before then that they basically go back to that their horde of binge watching TV?
I think it was really fun looking. There was so much to look into. And at first, I was super intimidated about what to actually talk about. It's actually Hewitt who suggested I look into this dragon. Because again, like I talk about way too much, I like learning about stuff about Poland, and because it's a big part of my family's background. And but this was fun to look into, and I think if I think we could do more than one part about dragons. Not that it's something we need to do next time as well, but in the future we could always talk about dragons again very easily.
Oh
I
yes, oh
think
yes.
it's just they're so ingrained in lore and myth and fairy and folk tales, and I think it's just so interesting to see how different places and times and people interpret them.
I mean, we haven't even got up into like that the way that like public broadcasting stations have basically like we had all grew up with like Pete's Dragon, Dragon Tales, and stuff like
As
that.
soon as you said public broadcast, my brain started going Dragon Tales, Dragon Tales. No, I was too old for that.
I mean that yeah, I mean that it's just basically then that and then that this is probably gonna date me, but then that old Disney Channel cartoon American Dragon Jake Long
Oh, I remember
that
that one. I remember that one.
yeah, then it's just a whole lot of plethora of stuff that we can get into about that. But
Awesome.
yeah, that I don't know what that the next topic would be. I mean, because honestly, that I would honestly probably say if we talk about tieflings, that'd be an episode in itself. Because I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to stick to just,
Right?
just
Yeah.
fantasy tales,
Yeah.
but
Yeah, because then that is exactly true. That the main goal of just basically investigation checks is to be a little bit more like educational with it, and then basically talk about like why certain of facets and assets of D&D, and then that they're real life equivalent, and then that we are just going up into a deeper kind of like open lecture discussion about it. But I
dude,
think that I think that this investigation check, I
we could
think
just
that
talk
we
about
passed the DC.
we could talk about just random things too.
Oh yeah, I mean absolutely. So
Like,
yeah, so then I think that we had passed the DC. Despite all of the no all of the disadvantages that we have had here.
yeah, my computer
Yes.
rolled a 1 for a minute there, and it critically failed. But I think as a whole, we passed the DC on this one, and we will be continuing this in the future.
Oh yes, and then I just want to just say just thank you to all of the people who had just stuck out with us through like through just like the Dalek voice of Neysa and stuff, and then that that I and then I basically had to be her speaker so to speak, and then I will give socials and stuff over to Frank.
All right. Well, we are so happy for anyone who checked us out tonight, and this will also be over on our YouTube channel later. Team bonus action, just like we are here, and maybe hopefully we can get a few of these under our belt. We could actually put it out on some podcast platforms. I think that'd be fun. Um, but in the meantime, you can check us out there. You can check us out on Facebook at Team Bonus Action. On Twitter, we are at bonus_team. I am on TikTok at fre.kun Freikun. I like to post about some of our antics here and update when we are going live. We appreciate anyone who donated to our tabletop weekend fundraiser today. I really wish I could have been part of that game because, boy, howdy, watching you guys post messages about it made me really wish I was playing. But we are continuing our St. Jude fundraiser until October 31st. So we are still having donations open for that. We have coming up tomorrow night, we will be doing Lassies again. Thursday, we will be coming back with Tears of Kairos. Sunday, I don't know if we're going to be having Into the Woods or not. It's kind of going to depend. Boss has some stuff going on, so we'll see. But we appreciate, your views, your likes, your watches. So keep it up and keep us in mind next time you want something fun, just kind of fun to listen to.
Alrighty then. So that with just that since that Knox isn't here, don't let your meatloaf. All right then. Thank you everybody, and then that we will see y'all in the next one.